This is Flint. It's a new, compact broadcast BIC switcher designed for field use and small studios. Because it's designed to be used by itself, it has some features that our bigger studio switchers don't. For example, it has an audio mixer, streaming and recording capability, 2 clip stores, and the clip stores can play QuickTime animation files with alpha channels. However, Flint can only handle up to 6 inputs. There are no secondary outputs like clean feed and aux, and it has a bit more delay. Let's have a look and see how Flint actually works. If you come here to the Broadcast BICS icon, then to Setup and Flint I/O Assignments, that brings up a picture of what the connector panel in the back looks like. All of the cards that are here shaded in yellow are your input cards. This first card is for your 4 SD, HD, SDI inputs. And these 2 other yellow cards are for inputs that are HDMI or analog. And you get breakout cables for these analog connections so you can feed a variety of different signals in. The red cards here are the output cards. Here's where you get your analog outputs, which come on also another breakout cable. Here's your HD-SDI output, and your HDMI output comes out on one of these connections here. Let's have a quick look at the inputs. These pictures here are showing on this one board which is your input 1, your input 2, your input 3, and your input 4. Then over here, this is input 5 and input 6 with HDMI or analog. This is different from the way our other products work. You have to specify the particular type of signal that's coming in. Here you see the different types of signals we can accept on our our HD-SDI inputs. If you don't see your signal for some reason, check here first, because you will get basically a blank screen if the setting here doesn't match the actual signal parameters. You can also put in a camera and an input name and a label here, but an easier place to put it in is actually right here on the main user interface. Let me show you that really quick. Just right click here and you can write something like that without having to go through a lot of hassle. One of these is called the name and the other one is called the label. The difference is that the label is the one that appears in the buttons of the panel, assuming you have a panel, whereas the name only appears up here on the multi-view. Let's have a quick look at our I/O assignments again. You'll also see that there are settings for what the icon is on the button. So if we look at our panel real quick, here you see there's a camera icon, a satellite icon, this is a server icon, and here's where you choose the particular type of icon you might want to appear on the button. You can say what the aspect ratio is of the signal, and then if the signal is a different aspect ratio than 16 by 9, you can specify how that signal is corrected to fit into 16 by 9. For example, is it boxed, which means that there's sidebars on the 4 by 3 signal, or it is cropped, which means the top and the bottom are cropped off, so only the center of the image is used to fill the 16 by 9 frame. We also have a 14 by 9 mode, which is an image that's slightly stretched, slightly cropped, and slightly boxed, sort of like a compromise. The idea being that it sort of makes the picture look more or less natural without taking too much off or leaving too much black in the way. So this applies to the 4 inputs that are coming in on your HD-SDI inputs. Then here is the analog and HDMI input cards. Again, you have to choose the type of signal that's coming in. This applies obviously to whatever might be connected to the HDMI input. And then these apply to what might be coming in on the analog input, which is a breakout cable. So you can only have one or the other at any given time on this particular input. Other than that, this input works more or less the same as the SDI inputs do. However, this particular one also has an audio input. And the purpose of this audio input is for you to feed back the audio from your audio mixer so that it can be synchronized exactly with the video and output on your video stream with the video streaming and the video recording capability that Flint has. Let's have a look now at our output assignments. Here, if we look at the output assignments, it identifies to you which of the HDMI ports has a signal on it. Here, this is the one that comes out, the SDI signal, and the analog signal comes out on here. Section 1.6.2 of the manual has a picture of the cable and a diagram of exactly what comes out where. While we were discussing outputs, let me show you the audio mixer, which controls the level of the audio that is coming out. We actually have two audio outputs. One is the audio that's included in the web stream, and then the other is the audio that's actually coming out of the system. And you essentially have two mixers where you can control the relative mixes of both of these. Here, as you look at the input fader, you'll see this is modeled on a professional mixer. If you click on here, it shows you which actual audio input is mapped to this fader. And here you can see that we can get the audio inputs from the individual embedded audio channels and the SDI inputs. We can also get audio from the HDMI inputs. We can get audio from our clip stores. It should be noted that our clip stores have stereo audio in them. And we can even get audio from the mic and line inputs on the computer. You can also label the input if you like, so that it's a little clearer, and then set up things like pan settings and preamp gain and stuff like that that you would find in a normal mixer. Down here are link and follow controls that have to do with our audio follow video feature. What that basically means is if you go to a particular input, you could give instructions that certain faders go up or certain faders go down, as well as link the faders together. A typical application would be, for example, that when you go to any of the cameras, that all of the faders that are assigned to the talent all go up together. Then you might make it that perhaps when the clip store is on the air and playing a news story, that makes all of the talent faders go down. That would be a typical application of follow and link. And you'll also see the standard audio mixer capability of the mute and solo, which allows you to silence an input for a moment or to just hear it by itself if you want to verify what it sounds like. How to physically hook up audio in and out of the system. If you come over here to Flint I/O assignments, here you see the HD SDI inputs. Each one of these inputs is capable of carrying 8 embedded audio channels. On the analog HDMI inputs, the HDMI input is able to carry 2 embedded audio channels, and the analog input has on the breakout cable connection for the audio in to come in that way. Then when you look at the mixer, up here is a button that lets you pick for each fader which input is going to be mapped to it. So here, for example, you see the 8 embedded audio channels on input 1, the 8 embedded audio channels on input 2, 3, 4. Input 5, you have the choice of analog or HDMI, input 6. And then down here, you see the 2 internal clip stores. Each one of those has stereo audio. And then finally, here you see the inputs coming in from the physical connections on the server box if you want to use those. Let's have a quick look at the outputs. This here is our HD SDI output. It carries 4 channels of embedded audio. Channels 1 and channel 2 are your master output, the master output from the mixer. Channels 3 and channels 4 are your web mix. So the two various outputs from the mixer are both carried as embedded audio on the HD-SDI output. Essentially the same thing goes for the analog output. The analog output, hold on, let me bring it up, has a breakout cable on it. Looks like that. And you will see outputs 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 and 2 are for your master mix. 3 and 4 are for your web mix. On this breakout cable, there is also an SD-SDI output, and the embedded audio on that is 1 and 2 master, 3 and 4 web mix. Finally, on the HDMI output, since that only has the capability of 2 embedded audio tracks, on that you will get your master output from the mixer. For people who don't want to use the mixer, who want to use perhaps an external mixer because they have a production with a lot of audio inputs, or they want the physical panel, that's possible to do too. Then what we do is we feed out the audio from the 2 clip stores that you will put into your external mixer so you can mix them into your production. And then we take the audio back from that mixer so that we can embed it in the web stream. And here is where we do it. This connection down here, which you can actually choose. Not only do we take back that signal, but we also can time the master output signal so that it is exactly synchronized with the video. We give you the option of streaming FLV with Adobe Media Live Encoder, which is what you see here, and Windows Media with the Windows Expression Encoder. And you can go up to 720p. Main thing is just that you have the proper settings here, broadcast pics, and the maximum resolution you can go is 720p. There is also an internal program output recording in H.264 mode at 1920 by 1080i in an MOV or an MP4 wrapper. This is so that you can basically make clips that then you can import into the BPix clip player. Aside from the live inputs, and I've mapped 3 of them over here, Flint also supports 8 internal signal sources. 2 of them are clip stores, and they support a variety of clip formats. I've made a little chart of them here. The codecs that we support include ProRes in these various codecs. You notice it includes 4444. That is a codec that includes an alpha channel. The clips can have bits that are transparent. That means that you play the clip over the live video and you can see through it in the transparent parts to see the live video. It's perfect for things like animated, lower thirds, alpha wipes, that kind of thing. We also support H.264 in an MOV or an MP4 wrapper. We support DNX HD in an MOV wrapper. And QuickTime animations. That is another popular format that supports alpha channel for transparency. Depending on the compression rate you use, you can store about 30 hours on the Flint drive, the video drive. The resolution that you should use is 1920 by 1080i, and depending on the region that you're in, you're going to want to do this at 2997 frames per second or 25 frames per second for areas that are PAL type. The other thing that we have is a very nice character generator, 2 channels of that too. It comes with integrated character generator software in Scriber. Here you can sort of see it. But the really nice feature about it is if you want to edit a character generator thing, all you have to do is right-click on it here, and you can change it. Let me do this so that you can actually see it change. Normally people put this on a separate monitor. And let me put that on the air. So for example, let us say I wanted this instead to say BPix town council. And then I hit this red update button. Notice that it changes immediately, even if it's on the air, and the change is smooth. This is one of the nicest features of all of the BPIX products, is the ability to change the graphics very easily. First of all, because information might change, for example, in sports, and also because when a guest arrives, it isn't uncommon for them to say that their job description is slightly different, or their title has been changed, or that kind of stuff. And all you have to do to change something is right-click on it. It opens it up in the character generator, and then you can go ahead and just change it and update it. That's one of our nicest features. The remaining four internal sources are basically the same. They are CG/StillStore/logo. They carry the name Still Store and Logo, but they're actually the same thing. And they can hold these character generator files that you can right-click to edit. In other words, editable, vector-based CG files. This is a real convenience and you could say an undocumented feature, that although we have 2 official character generators, the truth of the matter is actually we have 6. So I just wanted to point that out. By the way, all of these, this character generators, the stills, and the logos, they all can take normal bitmaps. So the usual suspects, Targa, PNG, BMP, and so forth. And they do support alpha channels. So for example, on Targa and PNG, those have alpha channel built into that format. If you come over here to File, Edit Show, it brings up a menu where you can edit what of your internal media you will use during your production. The broadcast pitch switcher is designed assuming that you will make multiple programs on it. For example, you might make a morning news show, then an afternoon talk show, perhaps an evening news show, and each one of those programs has a different opening, a different closing, different graphics, perhaps even different news stories, and so forth. And you really only want to present the clips and graphics and so forth that are going to be used for a particular program, rather than make the poor production people try and find their way through all the media that might be on the system. So the way, for example, that you choose the clips is you come here to Clips, to the clip button, press it, and here on the left it will show you all of the clips that are actually on the drive. Here on the right, it'll show you all of the clips you're using in this particular program. This ambitious program I have, I'm going to play a lot of clips. The clips that I'm using in the program show up in gray here, and the clips that I am not using in the program and are therefore eligible are shown in black there. All I need to do to put a clip on the air, to add a clip to a program, is highlight it, press the arrow key, that brings it over here, and then I can sort the order that the clip is presented to me on this palette and also on the panel itself with these buttons like that. If I have a clip that I don't want to use, I can just remove it by pressing that. And removing it does not remove it from the drive. It only removes it from the show, so I don't accidentally click on it. All of these entries over here have to do with how does the clip behave when you play it. And you can change this on a clip-by-clip basis. So for example, if you check this box here, then this clip is going to loop over and over again. It's perfect for backgrounds, things like that, that you might be using behind picture-in-picture effects, things like that. Auto start means that the clip will automatically start the minute you switch to it. This is a really useful feature because you just have to switch to the clip and it automatically starts playing. No one needs to cue it or anything like that. Auto stop means that the clip stops when you go away from it. Sometimes you want that, sometimes you don't. The time that you don't want it is when the clip is, say, the opening of the show. You want to go away from the clip. You want to, say, dissolve to the talent, but you want the clip to continue playing because you want to take the music from it and have the music gradually fade out as the presenter, says hello and introduces the show. Auto rewind means that every time you go to this clip is always going to start from the beginning. Very, very useful for openings, for bumpers, things like that. Maybe you want to shut this off for long clips where the presenter might want to interrupt the clip to say something about it. In that case, turning off auto rewind means that then when you go back to the clip picks up where you left off. Auto next means when the clip is done that the clip will drop down and the next clip will start playing automatically. This is probably most useful if you're not really sure which of your news stories is going to be the top story. So you make a little bumper that says top story and you turn on the auto next, and then at the last minute you simply position the clip that you want to be the top story immediately underneath it, and then it'll automatically drop through and play that one. Auto transition means that when the clip is finished, that the switcher will actually transition to whatever's on preview. So for example, after your opening is done, you can arrange that as soon as the opening is done, that the clip will automatically dissolve to the presenter, and the presenter can introduce the show. If you turn this one on, it will cut. And if you turn this one on, instead of cutting, it will use whatever the transition is that's selected. So let's say a dissolve, and it'll dissolve to the talent instead of cutting. So this is how you select the clips that you're using in your show. And don't forget that there's two clip stores. In this case, I mapped the second set of the clip store, the CG and the still store and the logo on a shifted pair of inputs. So I can have different clips on my different clip stores. A typical division might be perhaps to put all of the standard media, your opening, your closing, your bumpers in one clip store, and all of your transient media, let's say all of your news stories that you're only going to use that day, in the other clip story. But you can divide it any way you like. The character generator works in a similar way. Here on the left, we see all of our character generator files. And then here on the right, we see the files that we're actually using. And again, it's presented to us here and on the Pixpad, and also on the physical panel, which looks like this. Here, let me bring it up. This is obviously the virtual one, but it gives you a good idea of what the physical panel looks like. And you'll notice if I do clips, it gives me my selection of clips here. And I had quite a few, so I can step through them. Likewise, this one is following. I can do the same thing. If I look at my CGs, there they are. Here are my stills, and so forth. If I go back to File, Edit, Show, aside from being able to control what internal media is shown in my clip store in CG and so forth, I can go deeper if I want. And when I go deeper, it gives me the ability to actually reassign what's on each button. So if you look here, for example, here you see on my first 9 inputs, I have these particular live sources, these first 4. Then one of my clip stores, one of my CGs, one of my still stores, one of my logo channels in black. Then on the second bank of buttons, I have the second set of inputs. And in this case, I put the clip store, the CG, still store logo. This is probably not so typical. A typical person would probably put the 2 clip stores up here, maybe the 2 still stores here, and then they would probably put the CG and the logo channel down there, because they don't need to be accessed so directly. They're more likely to be put into keys, where they're superimposed over the picture rather than switched to directly. By the way, just so you can see how that works on the panel, let me bring the panel back up here. So for example, here are those very first 9 inputs, and if I press the shift, then I get the additional ones there. So even though the panel, this particular model, only has 9 buttons, there's actually 18 individual inputs that you can address. If you look back at that I/O assignments, you will see 2 boards that I didn't discuss earlier. This board here is for the multi-view, for basically the two computer screens. And this board here is for an Ethernet connection. The Ethernet connection is the Ethernet connection to the physical panel if you have one. Just use a crossover cable. This here is for your computer screens, and it can support two monitors at the same time for an extended desktop. It has a VGA, HDMI, and DVI connectors on it, and you can use these in a combination of any two. It'll support two monitors at once. This is really useful for two-man operation, because then what typically happens is the multi-view here is composed so that you see all the live signals and all the internal sources in your key windows here, and then all of these selectors here are put on the other monitor, and that person usually has the keyboard and mouse in front of them. So having two monitors makes it possible that you can really have a very convenient two-man operation, because each one has a screen for what he needs. And if you want, you can make more of these selectors, which we call pixpads. Let me make a couple. And typically, these selectors may be aimed at different things. So perhaps this one is aimed at your clips, this one is aimed at your CG1, this one is aimed perhaps at your CG2. So as your show is progressing, perhaps you're choosing the different clips you want to play like that, and then as your CGs are being put on and off, you might advance them like that. And this is very convenient to have a separate pixpad for each, because it's unlikely that you're going to be going the same speed. It makes it that you can go at a different rate with each one, because as this one may, typically people go through CGs faster than they go through clips, for example, things like that. But they're really very configurable, so you can do some interesting things. For example, when people are doing sports, it's very common for people to aim all of these at the same character generator, and then to make this look at the second 9 CGs, this one look at the third 9 CGs, and as a result you have only one click away 9, 18, 27 individual graphics. So you don't really have to do much looking around if you need a graphic in a rush, because you can just click it right away. And you can make as many of these screens as you like. Really the only limit is how much room you're willing to sort of compromise. A typical person may perhaps put 3 of them on a row like that, so it's easy enough to read what they say. And then perhaps another row underneath or something like that. 6 is usually the limit on a screen, but there's no engineering limit to how many of these you can put on. While we're discussing the user interface and how you can make all these pixpads, let me just show you more generally just how flexible this is. For example, I can make all these different layouts and save them. And the layout is completely flexible how I make it. I can take any of these little virtual monitors. I can make them any size that they like. I can have up to 4 copies of each one of these monitors. So I could have one for this one. Here, let me float another one so you can just see. I can float any of these things. So here's a second one if I wanted, for example, another person to be able to see it on a different screen and so forth. The quality of these monitors is also very good. These monitors are sharp enough that you can make out things like focus, or if you're looking at character generator stuff, that you can read the text and make sure that you're labeling the person properly. There's no spelling errors, that kind of thing. If you have it set up a layout that you've made like this one, here it is. There are also some useful tools. One that I should have put up but didn't is, let me float a counter. And for example, this is a little counter that will show me how my clips are playing. It'll count me down as a clip plays. So let me put a clip on the air real quick. Here like that. See how the clip plays? And it's showing me here 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And so I can see how long the clip has to go, and I can cue my talent. And they can look up and just immediately say, like, welcome to the show, that kind of stuff. The multi-view also shows me what's loaded into my keys, so I know what will come up if I turn the key on and off. It shows me pictures of what's in my clips, what's in my CGs, and my still stores. A lot of other useful information. For example, I can put up, if I want, things like clocks, like this, and I can even configure it and say in here, where we happen to be, that kind of stuff. While we're discussing the user interface, let me show you the panels. It's one of the things that makes our product powerful and unique. This is a virtual representation of our 1000 panel. It's probably the best match for the Flint's capabilities. We make a variety of these panels. What makes them special is that they conform to the broadcast standard. The button layout and the functionality is identical to switchers that exist in TV stations and professional production environments. And this is important because this is actually standardized almost as much as piano keyboards are standardized. So it's important that the buttons be in particular places and work in particular ways for people who are used to doing this to feel comfortable with them. Here's how a panel is normally, this is the standard organization. This row of buttons is program, and this is where you choose what's going out over the air. This is preview and is typically used to select the thing that you might be going to next, particularly if you're choosing an effect. This section here is where you choose your effect. You can do a dissolve and then everything else like wipes. And then here is that fader bar that you would actuate to do the effect, or you can also push an auto transition. Our switcher is a little unique. It comes with these very powerful downstream keys. For example, here's one. Let me move this out of the way so you can see better. Here's another one. Here's a third one. And each one of these keys is individually movable, resizable with the joystick. Here, let me do this with this other one. So now I'll move the other box. Resize it. And I can change the way they come on and off. So for example, if I go to this one, I can make it that it cuts on and off very sharp. Or I can turn the rate up so that it comes on very slow like this. And I can also change what's going into these various keys. So for example, this first one here, in the first box, I'll just put different signals into it, like that. These keys can also be cropped, and the arrangement can be memorized, so that if you want to sort of just immediately call it up, a particular arrangement, say like that, everything is sort of preset for you and stuff like that. There's a different video on this, on how to make the two box. So this is our 1000 panel. We make a couple of other panels. Let me show you what one of the others looks like. This is the 2000 panel. If I can get it to come up here. This one here. This is the 2000 panel. It has an extra row here for memories. I don't have it enabled at the moment. I have this in 1000 mode. But here you would normally put memories that would basically call up particular effects that you might have made ahead of time. And here you can see the program in the preview row is a bit, instead of 9 buttons, there's 16, which means you probably don't have to put anything on shift. The 2000 panel can be used with all of our systems, and so it has 6 key buttons, but Flint itself only provides 3. Other than the panels, there's a lot of other ways to operate our system. There's the virtual panel. You can even switch on the user interface. For example, I can turn all these keys on and off. I can switch to preview like this, just by clicking on the things. If I want to bring something to air, I can click here. If I wanted to cut to air, I can click there. I can turn the keys on and off like this. I can come over here to the clip store like that, and maybe choose a different clip, put it in preview, and then put it on the air. And as you can see, it auto starts and so forth. We also have an iPhone application, an iPad application, and the virtual panel that you saw me with a little earlier can even be run from a different computer. Okay, let's have a quick closer look at our panel, and you'll see up here in the upper right some buttons that, in this case, are loaded up with camera control. I've attached a Sony camera to this system, and what it allows me to do is to control the remote shots of the Sony camera. And I've programmed a couple of presets, so for example, you can see it moving here on the left. Preset number 1, preset number 2, preset number 3, and a wide shot. This is really convenient for sort of semi-automated productions, for example, city councils, that kind of stuff. On the panel, the presets appear with numbers, but on the user interface, the presets actually show you a picture of what the camera was aimed at when you took the preset. A really, really useful thing. You can control more than cameras with those buttons. You can control things like, say, clip servers. And we support a variety of servers, including the 360 systems, Harris, Omnion, Grass Valley, and AJA. In fact, we control quite a few things. We have an option that lets you control an external audio mixer. And we also have a very interesting option called Vox, which allows microphones to control our switcher. So depending on the person who's talking, which microphone picks him up, the switcher will not only go to them, but you can say that you want it to ID them, perhaps even with a variety of shots so it doesn't look so mechanical. This Vox option is very nice. It looks very natural. Okay, now I want to show you what's one of my favorite parts of the BPIX products in general. It's here under Panel, Macros. Macros are really nice and powerful. They are ways for you to customize the system for almost any possible user to use, whether it is a power user wanting to do something complicated or a basic user who wants difficult things automated so they don't have to stress too much. And it works in a very simple way. Let me bring up a panel here, and then let me put this here into record. And you will basically see that as I do things on the user interface, let me bring this up properly. Let's say I switch my different inputs like that. And here you can see that on the list it keeps track of what I did. Let's say I go to my clip player and I change the clips a little bit, maybe put a lower third on and off, maybe, do this kind of stuff, do an effect, that kind of stuff. You can see that it basically makes a record of what it was I did. I'm not going to save my masterpiece, although it is one. And here you can see every step that I did, and it's editable. So for example, let's say that instead of input 3, I actually meant to go to input 5. Let us say that the clip that I meant to go to instead of that one was, let's say, this one. Let us say that, all of these, let's say that the timing, I didn't want it to take 153 frames. Instead, I wanted it to take 68 frames. Everything can be changed and optimized. You can even change the orders of the steps and so forth. Then, once you make these macros, you can come over here to this section, and you can assign them to buttons. So here what I've done is I've made a little floor plan, basically, of the Broadcast PIX City Council Council Chamber. And here are all my councilors in a row, just as like they sit on the dais. And I put some buttons behind there that indicates get a wide shot of the left-hand councilors, get a right shot of the right-hand councilors. These represent the people who are facing the councilors. So the clerk, perhaps there's a podium in front where people can make appeals. Here perhaps some of the staff members that are there, and even here would be where the crowd is, and here might be shots of the crowd that I might want to take. Let's see how this works. I sit there and say, okay, perhaps I want to go see John Cupp. Notice that it zoomed on him and then took him. And I've written my macro so that it even loads the graphic, and then I can click on it to put it on and click on it to take it off. Let's have a look at Counselor Kelly Waters. There's Kelly, and we can ID her. Let's say that Fred Espresso has something quick to say. There he is. We put him like that. Let's say they're having a big discussion. We want to get a wide shot. And I can ID that too if I like. And I don't have to have this just with one camera. Let's say I have more than one camera, and perhaps these counselors are covered with one camera, these counselors with another camera, and this is the mayor's camera. Here's my mayor. He's a sports fan, and so he's coming in remotely, and so forth. And this is the real value of the macros. You can make a completely specific user interface for exactly how your user might want to use the switcher without them having to know anything about how a switcher works. They just, this is the guy I want to see, click him on, ID him, and then take that off. You can make buttons for anything. You could make buttons to say, do the opening, do the closing. And these macros are very easy to make. So let me actually open up one of these. And let's look at the John Cup one, for example. And here it is. Move the camera to preset 1. Take the character generator off in case it's on from the previous shot. Choose the proper graphic, and it even shows me a picture. Go to the camera that happens to be looking at that particular person, and wait. If I press it again, add the subtitle. Wait. If I press it again, remove the subtitle. It's that simple. And to then make the various ones that I did is all I had to do is come here and say, okay, I want now to do CG number 2, and I'm going to want to, instead of this one, I want to get, say, this person's thing, and just save it under another name and put another button on it. So making all of the macros for the different counselors was easy too. This macro feature is really one of the very nicest features of the Broadcast Pix products. Here's another Broadcast Pix feature that's pretty interesting. This is a software option called Rapid CG. It lets you tie your graphics to things like databases, action buttons, the U.S. Weather Service, RSS feeds, Twitter feeds, things like that. And I'll just give you a very quick little tour of what it can do. For example, let us say you have 3 different graphics like this, and you want to change the information in them quickly. For example, when someone scores something. You can make these buttons where you can say, okay, let me just add 3 points to that there. And you'll see that that information changes in more than one graphic at once. So this alone is a useful feature, but it's actually just a small part of Rapid CG can do. Here's a graphic that shows what can happen if you tie your graphic to a database. So here's my database, and all I have to do is choose the name of the player I want to see, and you can see that all of the information in here, including their picture, the logo, the statistics, and so forth, changes along with it. If your database happens to be an Excel file, then you're really in luck, because we can leverage, or Rapid CG can leverage a lot of Excel's capability. For example, Excel can add 16 plus 4 and get 20 and calculate that 16 is 80% of that total. So by using Excel to do this mathematics, you can have all of your graphics have extensive statistics in them, because Excel is really doing all the math in the background, and you're just displaying the information that Excel finally puts out. Excel can also do things like sort. So for example, Excel will sort the ranking of the player, and then Rapid CG will sit there and will show the entries of the players, including pictures, position, that kind of stuff, all in the proper order as the situation changes. And if the information in Excel or the database changes, Rapid CG will automatically update the graphic without you consciously having to refresh anything or whatever. This shows a feature that's brand new. It's if you connect your graphics up to the Weather Service. The way it works is you type in a zip code, 90210, that's a zip code I happen to know, and it gets it, and you can see the new feature is that now it puts up an icon to show you what the weather actually looks like, a little picture. You don't have to use the canned pictures that we give you. They're simple bitmaps, so you can make your own, and in RapidG you can specify, which library of pictures you want to use. But this is a new feature that was not previously in RapidCG, and I should mention you can ask it to automatically circulate among all these different towns if you want the stuff to change. Similar situation with this graphic. This graphic is now looking at RSS feed. Here's what that looks like. Here's where I type in the RSS feed that I want to use. Here it's showing me a little bit what the RSS feed is showing. I can refresh it because it's a little on the old side. There we go. And I can say auto advance, and then it'll sit there and auto advance between the stories, stuff like that. A new feature that's out is Twitter. And that, the implementation, is interesting. There is this thing called a Twitter editor. Here on the left-hand side are all of the graphics that are coming in. Let me make this a little bigger, like that. Here on the left are all the tweets that are coming in. And then here on the right are the tweets that I've chosen to have circulate here in my little rotating graphic. Not only can you look at the graphics here on the left and decide if you want to use them. In other words, you consciously say, yes, move this into the bin where I'm going to use it. But you can also edit them. And down here you can sit there and you can, let's say a person puts in their phone number or their address or something that you sort of think is I don't think I want to put that on the air. You can go ahead and you can edit that little bit out and then put it on the air like that. So this little user interface is really nice for giving you a chance to check and edit your content, your Twitter feeds, before they go out on the air. And this is a brand new feature in RapidCG. Another nice new feature in RapidCG is the RapidCG graphics can also reflect the information that is on a couple of major manufacturers of scoreboards. Unfortunately, I don't have a scoreboard here to show this to you, but basically the information that's on the scoreboard can be taken from it and automatically put into your graphics. This is a brand new feature, works with the Daktronics and a couple of other scoreboards, and is a new development in RapidCG. One of the things we get a lot of questions about is virtual sets. Here's where to find it. Come here to Panel, Fluent Controls, and that brings up the user interface that controls your Chroma Key settings, your virtual sets, and there's even an image editor for those. The first thing to do is to choose the Chroma Key settings for the cameras you're going to use in your virtual sets. I don't actually have a green screen in this room, so I'm going to use these clips instead. So I choose up here my input, and then I come here to pick color, and I drag this over here to somewhere on the background where I can pick the green color that will be used. And I get a little sample of the color over here to indicate this is being used, the chroma key is turned on this particular input. And I do the same thing with the other input too. Just pick it here, clips 2, like that. If we go to the virtual sets, the first thing I do then is I choose here the number of angles I want. Since I have 2 cameras, I would pick 2. And what I do is I pick the background that I want to show. And you just put these in put them in folders, and with all the related pictures together, let's choose BPix Studio. And here are all the pictures that I can use in my virtual set. This virtual set works a little differently than some others people may be used to. It does not require you to build a model or anything like that. You can just use regular pictures, even ones that you just take with your camera or stuff like that. You can put people anywhere you want without a whole lot of muss and fuss. And then what you do is simply say, okay, for angle 1, I want this picture. For angle 2, say I want that picture, and so forth. So this is maybe the 2 angles we would have in our virtual set. And then here is where I connect the camera up with the background. So here I would say, all right, put clip number 1 on it. Notice that the icon here, the little thing, already changes. Let me go ahead, put her on the air. Since she's a clip, she doesn't start until she's on the air. But as you can see, the Chroma Key is pretty good. If I wanted to adjust the Chroma Key, there's quite a few controls here for adjusting the exact hue, the acceptance angle of the green color that we're using. We can clip it a little bit, adjust the gain, the spill, that kind of stuff to get the thing optimal. We also have this image editor. So all we need to do is to say, well, we have this background image, and let me go to it. Let's go to BPEG Studio. Let's say this one. And it's a little utility that makes the picture look a little closer to what perhaps the video looks like. So you can say, well, I like the contrast to match the camera a little bit, so you can change that. A very useful thing is blur. And so you can sit there and you can say, you know, blur the image a little bit, because the truth of the matter is this is the depth of field of the camera. You would want this background to be blurred. And then back here, it would look more realistic because she would be sharp against a blurred background. So this virtual set is very easy to use, very straightforward, very intuitive. I know all you techies are wondering, you know, where are all the system settings and configuration stuff? And the answer is in a couple of places. For example, all the panel settings are under the panels window, under the panels menu item. And here you see the settings that are sort of specific to the panels. For multi-view, there's a multi-view settings choice, and here you see the choices that you can adjust there. The more general settings, things that were a little harder to categorize or whatever, are under Setup and then System Settings. And here are some things. For example, when you start the software, you can say, please load a particular show. You can say when the software opens, please load a particular layout, which is a multi-view arrangement. And here, I'll choose mine. You can even say load a particular memory. So if you wanted, you could even say when the software starts, please load up my keys, program, preview, all that stuff with very specific stuff. If you come here to the video tab, here's where you can choose, you know, basically NTSC frame rate versus PAL frame rate, what field is switched on, that kind of stuff. Some useful features, for example, the relative volume of the clip store and the program output. The other thing is you can also adjust for the variable timing between the clip store video and the clip store audio. Over here, a lot of multi-view settings that are more generic. So do you show the entire picture? Most of this is fairly intuitive. Devices, for example, a lot of the devices we control, we communicate with them in various ways, where you have to specify what COM port they're attached to, or what IP address they're at, so forth. So for example, this is where you put in the information for the Panasonic cameras. Here, this is mostly IP addresses and stuff of that sort. And then this final tab is for watch folders. That's places where you can put content that you want loaded into your show after you've already started it. And what will happen is, this is .content, whether it be clips, graphics, or whatever, will be loaded at the end of the particular palette that you've designated, so that if you have a late-breaking story, you can have it show up and you can click on it before the broadcast is out. So that's a quick overview of the BroadcastBix Flint system. Last but not least, what you're probably going to find very useful is if you go to the BroadcastBix icon and look under Help, you will find our user manual. This is a PDF copy of the instruction book that comes with this system. Over 400 pages of installation instructions, user instructions, extensively diagrammed and illustrated, and written in easy-to-understand English. But the nicest feature about it is that you can search it. So for example, if I type in the topic that I might be interested in. You will see that it'll take you directly to the section you might be interested in. This section is the section on how to export clips for use in our system, and you'll see that it's actually illustrated with the windows of the software application that you might be using to export your clips. So the manual tries to be as helpful as possible in a way that you would find the most useful. If you need additional help, here is some additional resource. Here we go. This is the Broadcast PIC support line. The phone number is, in the United States, 978-600-1098. And they can be also reached by email at support@broadcastpics.com. We also offer training and configuration on-site. So someone will come out to your location and show you how to work your system. In fact, the person will even configure it for you if you like and help you set it up so that you're ready to just start making your show. For more information about that, contact Bob Lamb, the training manager, at blam@broadcastpics.com. So that brings us to the end of this video. I'd like to thank you for watching it. If you have any questions or need any information or even have suggestions you want to make, give us a holler at any of this contact information over here. We're always glad to hear from you and always glad to help. Thanks for watching.